meeting. We've got the live broadcast going, and we are live and recording tonight's meeting as well. So you can take it from there.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, I'm going to begin our meeting with a land acknowledgement. I want to begin the Manhattan Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force second meeting with a land acknowledgement recognizing our connections to Indigenous lands, peoples, and cultures, past, present, and future. We acknowledge that Manhattan stands on the treaty lands of the Kaw Nation. In addition to Native peoples from a variety of tribes living in our community today, there are 4 federally recognized tribes in Kansas: the Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, Sac and Fox, and the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. And finally, we acknowledge our Manhattan community's commitment to the future success of Indigenous cultures and peoples everywhere. I want to extend a welcome, a heartfelt welcome for your presence here this evening. If your day was anything like mine, it is a wonderful accomplishment to be here with each other tonight to do this important work, and I extend a heartfelt thank you. This is, as I said, our second meeting. We just met just 2 weeks ago, I think it was, for our inaugural meeting. And we are so pleased and so thankful that each of you have agreed to be part of this community work, this important work in diversity, equity, and inclusion for the space we live in at the moment. I just want to remind everyone to keep our microphones muted. We are broadcasting live, and so unless you have something to say, which you can indicate through raising your hand, and you can go ahead and keep that mic muted so that way we can keep the flow of our meeting today. Before I give this over to Corey to introduce some new members, I do want to let you all know that tonight we're going to, I want to thank you for completing the SWOT analysis and let you know that tonight we are going to be focusing on 1 or 2 areas of that SWOT analysis, but I want to recognize the important things that you contributed to our opportunities and our threats, some of which were very serious items that you shared about what's affecting our community right now. And so I hope that all of us will review those materials, even if we don't get to them tonight and to talk to them about them tonight. We will all review those materials, and if there's anything within our spheres of influence that can begin to help some of those issues that you all listed under those 2 categories, particularly, I hope that they will be moved upon if those are in your spheres of influence to work on as we move forward. All right, I believe, Dennis, that you suggested we do a roll call.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, one, that we have this documented who's here for our record-keeping purposes, but also I think it's a value for people to acknowledge that they're here and that they're representing different communities across the city. And so we'll start in no particular order. Brian Samuel. Just give a present or here. So if
I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Yes, you can take this moment to unmute and then mute. Adrian Rodriguez.
I'm here. Thank you.
Is it Denisha McDonald? Did I get that right? Let's see her on here. Okay. Dennis Butler.
Good evening, everyone.
And Jason Smith.
I'm here.
Johnny Taylor. Jerdine Coleman. Lori Feldkamp.
Good evening, I'm here.
Great. Lorenzo Lockett.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Great. Pedro Espinoza.
I am here, thank you.
Ronald Atkinson.
Present.
Sheila Glasper,
Here.
Susan Rensing,
Hi, everyone.
Teresa Parks,
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Vanessa Salinas, but he'll be a little bit late. Michael Lambert,
Here.
Jerry Sextro,
Here.
Kara Bruce, and then we have some new members: Rachel Korn,
Here, thank you.
Keisha Clark,
Present.
Audrey Schwartz, and then we have a substitute, Dr. Bashir. I believe is here. Good. That concludes our roll call. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Dennis. So we do want to take a quick moment to acknowledge some of our new members that have joined the task force. We are so grateful and appreciative that you have decided to join this effort, this work. I think we've talked a little bit about it previously, but this will be a task force that's designated for the calendar year. And so we will be meeting together monthly to connect and continue to make progress. And so before we get started with breaking down the SWOT and going through the strengths and weaknesses this evening, we want to give each of our new members or anyone that's serving in a proxy role an opportunity to present them, to introduce themselves. And if you were not here last meeting, also, if you would like to take a moment to introduce yourself. So I'll call your name, and then if you want to just take a moment to let us know your preferred pronouns, organization that you're representing. And then if there's anything that your organization is either focused on or you feel like is really important to make sure that this group is aware of, that would be helpful as well. So I'll get us started here with Rachel Korn. If you wouldn't mind just taking a quick moment to introduce yourself.
All right, thank you. Like you said, my name is Rachel Korn. My pronouns are she, her, and I am representing the Manhattan High School Student Council. And my goal is just to connect what happens here with the high school and put into practice all of these at the high school level. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard. Keisha Clark.
Hi, I am Kennedy Clark. I'm representing the Manhattan Housing Authority. I think the most pressing issue for us is affordable and accessible housing. And so I'm looking forward to working on the task force to hopefully make some things happen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, she, her, they are my pronouns.
Perfect. All right. I believe Audrey had not made it onto the call quite yet during roll call. And so I believe Lori is on the line. I'm not sure if you had a chance to introduce yourself last meeting.
I didn't. I wasn't able to attend last time. Good evening. My name is Lori Feldkamp. I'm the CEO of Big Lakes Developmental Center here in Manhattan. Big Lakes has been here for 47 years, serving individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'm very happy to be here to help represent that particular population and help Manhattan move forward. And I am she and her.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dennis, if I'm not mistaken, is that all of the new members or newly joining us members that are present at this time?
Hey, I don't see Dr. Bashir on here, so I think we've covered everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
He is here. Yeah.
Dr. Bashir?
Dr. Bashir, yes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Al-Fadil Bashir. I'm representing Islamic Center Manhattan, Islamic Center in Manhattan. I work as a postdoc at K-State University. I am here in Kansas for almost like 4 years, 2 years in Hayes, and the last 2 years I'm here in Manhattan. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, taking time out your day, Dr. Bashir. Appreciate that. All right, so we will now transition into diving into the great work that you all have done over the last week or couple of weeks. And so once again, thank you for getting or meeting with your groups and putting together a SWOT analysis from the perspective of the organizations that you are representing. And Dennis and his team has done a fantastic job of combining those submissions. And then Tanya has done a phenomenal job as well by helping us break those out into the various areas of focus for us. And so we're going to have some guided dialogue, primarily today focusing on the strengths and potentially the weaknesses, depending on what time allows us to cover. But what's I believe is really important is that we take the time necessary to really dive into these various areas. And so I want to be careful, maybe not to rush through any particular portion. And so we know Manhattan is doing a lot of great things. And so we want to take the time to really acknowledge the strengths that have been submitted. And so today we'll start with focusing on the strengths, and as we work through that, I would also like you to be thinking about how we could make sure that the things that we are doing well as a community is communicated or is widely known or are available to the public potentially. And so as we navigate the conversation, I think we can be asking ourselves, how well is this known around within our community? And so those are the two areas we'll really focus on. And then depending on time availability, we may transition into the weaknesses. So I believe there is a document that we will be sharing that allow us to get started. And as I said, Tanya has done a great job with doing at least some initial work and categorizing our strengths into the various areas of focus. Looking on here, starting with livability. And so as we go down through these, I think what we really want to do is just allow you to take the time to review, because I believe you've had the document submitted prior to this meeting, but really highlight those areas that to resonate with you. And then if there's some things that are missing that have not been cataloged here, we would want to make sure that we address that. So I'm gonna transition to Tanya and then allow us to go from there.
Thanks, Corey. So as Corey mentioned, I tried to organize the lists that you all provided into the categories. And just as a reminder of what those categories are, I divided them up into individual and family support, economic opportunity, public safety, livability, and health and wellness. And I thought that we could go ahead and take those from the bottom to the top, starting with health and wellness and moving to livability, and then thinking about public safety, economic opportunity, and individual and family support. I also have another category that is a general category, which represents the sort of statements that related to like our general strengths as a community. I did the same thing for our weaknesses categories. And so as Corey mentioned, what we will do is go through each category one by one. You can review what is on the screen here or what's in your category on your list. And if you see something that's missing that we haven't collected in this particular area, especially if you didn't have an opportunity yet to contribute to the SWOT, please add them on. As we're not going to read all of the strengths out loud. I'm assuming you have the document before you. But if you have things to contribute, we will go through those one by one and have those things contributed. And as Corey mentioned, after we go through the strengths, we'll talk about how can we make these strengths more visible to our community? What steps might we take to make that happen? And then we'll transition with time to to any weaknesses that we have. All right. Well, we have them. They're obviously on a list. So we will transition to discussing those weaknesses. All right. So for health and wellness, and Dennis is going to kindly, I believe, type things up if we want to add anything. This is one of, I just want to, the Flint Hills Wellness Commission, is it, Susan?
Coalition.
Coalition, thank you.
Yeah.
The Flint Hills Wellness Coalition has clearly done a lot, and we're so excited to dig into the needs assessment and the opportunity map that was produced in 2020 or published in 2020, and that represents a lot of work that went into that process, and so we are so appreciative of that. It gives us a huge head start to thinking about what our needs are for the community. So hopefully, as you just got the SWAT a couple of days ago, so as you visit between now and our next meeting, you'll be able to look at that a little bit more closely. Other things that we want to add.
Dr. Gonzalez, you and I spoke earlier today. I didn't get a chance to add my comments to the form, but there are two things that I was going to add that I don't see here in reading the document that was emailed to everyone. I don't know if this is the same document or not, but
it is the same content. It's the same content, but I organized it differently.
Okay. Well, I did not see affordable housing as a strength, and I know that may be a little bit of a oxymoron or perplexing ideal that housing could be affordable, and I think I should probably say, for a caveat, it can be in both strengths and weaknesses. And when I say that, I lived in 6 states, right? And I've seen places where housing prices and taxes and some of these other things that we think about are just really outlandish and far gone. So it is a little high and certainly expensive, but by comparison, when we're thinking about other localities that we're competing with for talent and for families, it is quite not as expensive as other places. So I think that particular topic could be in simultaneously a strength and a weakness. The other thing that may be more akin here to health and wellness, I don't know. I think we also have low crime here as a city, and when I think about the big 4 or 5 crimes that individuals or cities and localities have to report on and things of that nature, maybe I'm just oblivious to it, but I don't see or hear a lot of those type of things happening in our community, and so is really safe. And if that is in fact true, then that could be a big selling point for families to think about.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. I appreciate both of those contributions, and we can probably go ahead and add those, the low crime to the as we move forward in the next several sections, but we can do that as we come to the public safety section, and the affordable housing we can add to the economic section, as well as the individual and family support and livability sections. So as we come to those sections, we will definitely add those. And Dr. Samuel's comments bring up a really important point that I wanted to make before we begin the conversation. So thank you, Dr. Samuel. These strengths that we've generated and the conversation that we have right now about these strengths and the strengths we add to them, they don't necessarily have to be a strength for every single person on this committee or for every single person, or it's about what you see as the strength rather, right? And so someone who has the context of having lived in a place that was even more inaccessible in terms of housing, right, has that coming in and can see that that as a strength, affordable housing as a strength. So all of us have different positions through which we are seeing these strengths and these lists, the whole SWOT analysis actually, and we want to honor those, the variety and the diversity of those perspectives, because that is what we're doing here. We are trying to make these lists as expansive as possible in order to make the conversations that we have moving forward, right, very clearly open to the different perspectives that we have as a team. So we will contextualize these strengths as we move forward, looking at our weaknesses and our opportunities and our threats. So as we focus on the strengths, even if we disagree about if they are a strength or not, we're going to add them to the list and put those placeholders there so that later we can have those conversations in more detail. Yes, Dennis Butler.
Yes, Tanya, on the page you have up, I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the third and sixth bullet. And it doesn't necessarily mean the entry needs to be edited. I just want, for the benefit of the group, to have them a little bit more context. I think it's important as committee members to know this. On the third bullet about mental health co-responders, the co-responders also follow up on referrals that police officers make when the co-responders are not available. So if we encounter somebody in crisis and we're able to deal with it before it becomes critical, we forward that information to our co-responders. So when they are working, they can follow up with those folks. So they don't go out on every single call, is the distinction I wanted to make. And in addition, they also treat and serve, not treat, they serve inmates in our jail as well as part of their duty. So it's not just out on the street with the police officers. On the sixth bullet, there's a distinction here that I think is important. About 30% of our current police officers are already trained in crisis intervention techniques. What this is referring to is that we typically in the past have sent our officers to other places to receive this training. And so the resources that those places use are not the same as our resources. So what we've been trying to do is coordinate a local training using all of our local resources, so it's more relevant to the kind of training we're trying to certify officers in. This is a 40-hour, 5-day class, and it was scheduled for last April, and it was rescheduled twice and then canceled, and we're just waiting for COVID to lessen where we can go ahead and hold it. It also would include firefighters if they want to attend, paramedics, dispatchers, other first responders other than police officers. So I think it's important to know it's a multidisciplinary approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other additions to this particular strength?
You know, I guess I would just acknowledge that there is a little bit of chat in reference to housing affordability going on in the chat section. And so I just wanted to open it up. If anyone had any additional thoughts that they wanted to share, I just want to give you that opportunity to speak on that topic as well. Very good. Dennis, I believe your hand is still up, or is that in? All right, perfect.
I thought Tanya would take it down. I'm sorry, I didn't.
No worries.
Don't have
There,
that
how's that?
Great.
Very good.
Susan,
I believe the chat, just so folks are, you know, that are not able to review this, I think it's just reinforcing Dr. Samuel's message of that housing could be listed in both categories of a strength as well as a weakness, depending on you know, what your status is, or you know, or what your socioeconomic background might be. So that is some of the conversation that's happening in the chatting area.
thanks, Corey, for summarizing that. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that if you look at the Riley County Needs Assessment, affordable housing was listed very high up. And so just to reinforce the comments in the chat, I think if you're coming from, you know, a big city elsewhere in the country and buying a house, Manhattan prices might seem affordable. But if you're, you know, born and raised in the community and low income or struggling or fixed income, the entry point for buying is really very high, and the rental prices, especially for what you get, which is connected to sort of safe and affordable housing. A lot of people in the community needs assessment mentioned that that was a struggle for them and a challenge for them.
And for the chat function, I did not disable at this time, and still trying to figure out how to. We just need to make sure for open records for maybe the visually impaired who can't see the chat, we need to make sure our substantive comments are aired as discussion and not have an extensive chat. If you have some kind of extraneous information out, that's fine for the chat, but if you have some substantive information, let's make sure we air that through conversation.
We're going to get to our housing points in a bit when we get to that section. So are there any other points that need to be made about health and wellness?
And with that, I guess I would also ask, as Dennis was willing to do as well, if there's any points on our strengths with the health and wellness that could use further clarification, this would be a great time to provide that as we go through the list as well. Or if there's questions about what's on the list. Sorry, Tanya, go ahead. We can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we can always go back to something if you have, if you remember that something to add. So our next area for strength is livability, and I will note that I placed some of these strengths in multiple places. I put them in multiple categories because they overlap some of the areas, and so you might see some redundancy, but that's on purpose. So you can look through the strengths on livability, and we've added Dr. Samuels. Thank you, Dennis, for adding that. Can we add in comparison to other regions or other cities outside of Kansas, please? So that covers what was noted in the chat. Outside of Kansas, not inside Kansas. We can put, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. That's fine. All right. Anything we want to add? And I will also remind the team that livability is a very flexible category. So feel free to be creative in how you're interpreting it as you add our strengths. And don't be shy, especially for those of you who are new members who might not have had a chance. All we did the first meeting was introduce ourselves in our groups. So don't be shy about adding. Yes, Dr. Samuel.
Maybe the health and well, did we have the trails and you know, all the nature walks and all that? Was that in health and wellness? Was that, you know, parks and trails and stuff like that? Was that pointed out?
We had not included our parks and rec areas, and so that's definitely something we can add as a bullet point. Park trails, parks and recs, and park trails.
I have a question or a comment.
Yes, sir.
I think as we look at the housing, subject of housing, two things we need to really be cognizant of is the presence of the military and the presence of K-State. Those things drastically and graphically affect affordable housing. Thank you.
Are you suggesting that as a strength or a challenge? Strength?
As Dr. Simmons, they're both. The presence helps us economically, but because people come in with solid incomes from outside of Manhattan, like is in the military, then they're able to afford it. But people who work at a lower wage can't afford it. So it both it works as a plus and as a minus.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I wanted to make sure we had understood you properly.
Sure, thank you.
All right. So other points for yes.
Yes. I think upon the livability, well, you're good right there. But the fourth and fifth bullet are together, and they should be together, not necessarily separate. That's all. There you go.
Thank you. My editing process was very quick this afternoon, so I appreciate. I hope you will be patient with stray bullets, if you will. All right. Other comments on livability?
There's some commentary, or there's a couple of bullet points that reference the school district and KSU's focus on DEI, and I didn't know if anyone that's sitting on our on the call now are able to expound on maybe some of that and provide a little bit more insight on what's maybe happening in a quick summary of what's intended with those two bullet points.
I can talk about K-State, of course. We're very near completing our strategic diversity and inclusion plan, in addition to a number of action steps around a more inclusive K-State to help make sure that all our community members feel welcome and engaged in a sense of belonging.
Rachel, did you want to say something? Oh, we can't hear you, Rachel.
And different ethnic groups like the Black Student Union. I believe there's an Asian Student Union and a Hispanic Student Union, and I believe there might be a couple more. So I know the schools, at least the high school, is really trying to put a focus on making those clubs successful and allowing them to have different projects around the school.
And the high school also had the LGBTQ thing that they passed maybe a year ago or 2 years or something.
I know that I believe it was yesterday that the school district's diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan was released. And so that's another area where that would be more comprehensive in how our school district is doing that work. I don't know if Pedro is still on the line, but I think you're on that committee. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was just invited actually last month, and they had, so the first meeting was that I was going to be attending, which I only attended for 3 minutes because it was today at 5:30. Then I had to come to this meeting. So really, I only got to listen to the introductions, but the superintendent was also attending that meeting. The coordinator Suzanne, she mentioned, they were about to talk about the presentation that they gave to the Board of Education at last night's meeting. So it seems that there are great things taking place, but unfortunately, I'm not really aware of everything just yet because again, I haven't really had a chance to attend meetings.
Thank you for at least confirming that, that the amendment. Susan, you have something?
I was just going to point out, Tanya, it looks like one of my bullet points got cut off. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth down about, Habitat for Humanity. I sort of listed off the partnerships, and I think so that's just a editing thing.
Yes, and actually that's actually listed below as well. And so I think I cut and pasted it twice, and it didn't make it all the way there. Sorry about that.
All
but
good.
Yes.
Yeah, all good. I thought I just pointed out.
Thank you. We do have that completely listed more completely, thoroughly in other areas. But thank you for pointing that out. We'll fix that. Adrian.
Yes, I was just going to elaborate just a little bit on some of what Dr. Samuel mentioned and what Rachel referenced in regards to the USD. Similarly, we have our multicultural student organizations, as well as affinity groups. I think that's something that we really want to be able to capture, as a university. But what we're doing, that also leads me to some of our companies and businesses that have employee resource groups. I know Commerce Bank does as well, and I've worked with them about their employee resource groups. So those are definite, as far as livability and definite strengths. I think that helps those employed, at those with those entities. Additionally, at K-State, I think we should also mention the resource centers that are available. Student Access Center for students with disabilities, our LGBT Resource Center, the Multicultural Student Center, which is just completed and now available for all our multicultural student organizations, as well as our International Student Center and so forth. So I think our resource centers for our students, Dr. Samuel mentioned the diversity and inclusion plan, but we also have diversity plans within K-State athletics. We have, councils across the academy and university wide. So I think there's obviously plenty happening there, but those are just some of the things that I think are worth mentioning.
Thank you. I think those are crucial connections, especially thinking about our various populations here in the community and their employment, and having those affinity groups and having those cultural groups in different as employees is really crucial to building community and also connections to diversity work and efforts. All right. Other additions?
I do have a question. Going back to the workforce housing by Manhattan Habitat for Humanity designed by KSU, do you mean like architectural faculty and students?
That's correct, and
okay.
that is more clearly elaborated in the list that you were provided. I cut off half of that statement for just this section. We'll come to it again in another strength.
Also, I just want to make note that there was a question about what is CATS Cupboard in our chat, and Vadak was able to provide a link to CATS Cupboard, but essentially it's a food pantry located on campus. And so just to clarify.
Lori, go ahead.
Yes, when I was looking at the list, I'm not sure if this would be under livability or economic opportunity, but one of the things I did not see in the list, perhaps it's there, I just didn't see it, is the fact that we have the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation and the support that they help to provide for nonprofits. I think that was especially evident this last year with the Grow Green campaign. During the pandemic, they saw record numbers of giving, and I think that's definitely a strength of our community.
Thank you so much. And I think that definitely fits in multiple categories, especially thinking about individual and family support and economic opportunity and livability. Wonderful. Okay. Let's see. I think we are ready to move on to the next strength area, which is public safety. And we are adding, Dennis is on it. Dennis, the low crime as a city, low crime rate that Dr. Samuel added. Okay, so I think, Lori, you just still have your hand raised. Otherwise, I'm going to let Dennis Butler continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, for the benefit of the group, I just learned last week, due to a request from one of our legislators, that we compared our Riley County crime rate from 2003 through 2019 against the state average. And I won't get into the nuances of it, but it's called Part 1 crime, and it has two main subcategories, violent crime and property crime. And in every subcategory and overall, for every year between 2003 and 19, Riley County's crime rate was lower than the state average. The other piece of that research was comparing us to other university communities, two in particular. And while we weren't lower every time, predominantly, we were lower than the other counties. And this was all about the county-wide policing system here, which is unique in Kansas compared to those that have individual police departments and sheriff's offices. So the low crime rate comment is a fantastic one. It's a tradition, really, at least back through 2003, that this is a very safe community.
And Director Butler, was that 2000, since 2000?
The KBI rates that are available only go back to 2003. Okay. So it was between 2003 and 2019.
And Dennis, you mentioned similarly situated communities, college towns or whatever that was compared to. Are you at liberty to share those communities, or is that?
Sure, and it's not, and again, it's not to be derogatory or denigrate those communities, but the two counties were Douglas County and Lyon County. And the demographics don't line up exactly with us, but they're two university communities that have different types of policing. And that was really the focus of the request, was to illustrate the benefit of a countywide police department compared to communities that have several different law enforcement agencies serving them.
I need you to help me just a little bit. I'm not really familiar enough with the counties to know which universities. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Douglas County comprises Kansas University in Lawrence, and Lyon County has Emporia State University in Emporia.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does K-State's law enforcement fit into this conversation, Director Butler?
The data that we collected involves what we call generalists in policing. So when you have specific organizations like campus police, wildlife and parks, that's not included in the data because it's not the same type of policing, the same constituencies. Again, not to be critical of those different ones that are more specific to a specific type of community and limited in their enforcement area, for example, but it really is more sheriff's offices and municipal police departments is what we were compared to.
Way back when in 1970, when it first became possible for counties to have a unified law enforcement organization, I don't think anybody thought only one of 105 counties would take advantage of that. But that's the way it happened with Riley County. And it's interesting because there are two professional police forces in Riley County, RCPD and the K-State PD. So, you know, they're not, K-State PD is a police department, not rent-a-cops. And as far as I know, this kind of situation is unique in the United States.
It's unique in Kansas, and at least in the surrounding states. I would venture to say there's very few, if any, other communities that have abolished their sheriff's office and consolidated all of law enforcement into one. There are a lot of county police departments on the East Coast. I lived in Virginia for many years. I lived in Fairfax County. They have a county police department. Arlington County has a county police department, but they also have sheriff's offices as well. So it's not just one law enforcement agency. Just for everybody's benefit, there are statutes that are in place that allow other counties to do the same thing. They just have to get their citizens to pass a referendum like what happened here to do it. And there just doesn't seem to be the political will or the lack of turf coverage to allow that to happen.
I have a question. How does patrolling in those areas, those county areas outside of the city limits factor into a lot of that as far as patrols on a regular basis versus waiting on a call to be made to solicit help or assistance?
It's a good question. It is a different style of policing outside of Manhattan. You know, we also have one of the larger cities in the county besides Manhattan is Ogden. So we do have officers assigned to those areas. The North County, as we call it, everything north of Manhattan, does have permanently assigned officers up there who have a sergeant that supervises them, and they cover a massive amount of area. But when you look at the calls for service in those areas, it's very low. But it's all part of the crime rate that I just talked about. Crime is much lower in those areas than it is in Manhattan and Ogden. But it's all part of the same department. It's just a different type of scheduling and coverage than the city.
Thank you very much. All right, are there any other points of public safety that people would like to add to our strengths list? Last call. All right, then we will go ahead and move to economic opportunity. As I mentioned before, you may see some repetition of some of these points from other areas, but we will let you review those and add strengths that you see. So I see one vote for our first bullet point being a strength and an opportunity for development. So we can go ahead and put that caveat there. Others? All right. Oh, I beg your pardon. Susan, please.
Just in the, thinking about food and kind of the opportunities for startups. If I'm not mistaken, Manhattan kind of has some restrictions on food carts and kind of the more, the place where maybe a small business might start, like food carts in downtown, food carts on campus. So if we're really thinking about this as an opportunity in terms of regulations, that might be a place to start a conversation.
Sheila, go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to say, with speaking with our members, the Black entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills, there are several members that we have that own restaurants or have catering services. And I'll definitely say that there's been a challenge to be able to get space, commercial space, to be able to affordable commercial space to open up those restaurants. I would agree. And second, what the last speaker said, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name, but
Susan.
Susan, yes, what Susan said, because those are opportunities to be able to have food trucks and things like that. It's the commercial space that's definitely a challenge that has came up in our group. And those would be the vendors that, or the restaurants that would, be able to offer a soul food option or any other, type of multicultural food. And I think we've all seen that it's been hard to see a soul food restaurant in particular be able to last and stay open in our Manhattan area.
That's precisely why I put the comment in the chat. I don't know if the food offering is diverse enough. And maybe it's appropriate here. Some communities will do startup type of space leasing or something like that to help support, get businesses up and running. Low rent for first 2 years or 5 years or something like that to kind of help them get established and become a staple of the community.
Yeah, I would say if I could add to that, Brian, that was a great point. If you go to other cities, they usually have some kind of food hall or, a place where it's kind of like a food court, and you'll see a lot of multicultural food vendors in there. And that's not something that we have right now, but it is an opportunity.
I love that. Thank you for adding that. Those points. I think, one of the economic opportunities clearly that's being articulated here, though it's being articulated as something we can talk later in terms of opportunity, is the desire for more multicultural cuisine in restaurants. So the desire for them is strong. And so I think that we can just frame it in that way, right? And then sort of think about those opportunities that we might be able to kind of take advantage of, right? All right, Lori has the hand raised.
Yes, economic opportunities in the Manhattan area, as someone who's lived here for a very long time, I think that we are very insulated when it comes to swings in the economy. When the 2008 economic issues came, Manhattan was pretty insulated from that. So, we have very low unemployment, traditionally have very low unemployment. There's employment opportunities for individuals, but then we'll have to talk on the weakness and threat side as to the fact that we don't have people to fill those jobs. So, but there is the opportunity there for work, and it's pretty stable around here.
Thank you, Lori. We should also put a placeholder for thinking about other urban areas have incubators for startup restaurants and things like that. So we'll just go ahead and we'll make sure that those points are incorporated into our SWOT analysis. We'll collect the chat and incorporate all of these comments into our SWOT analysis as we move forward.
Could I offer one more thought, please? Since we're on economic, I've been here 3 years, and every year I go to the Juneteenth celebration. And as nice as it has been, it could be better. And in thinking of it, there could be even more diverse community activities that would bring some economic, spending, cultural celebrations, and some of these other kind of things to Manhattan.
Can I piggyback a little bit off of that, what he said? So with the Juneteenth, it used to be kind of a South Side thing because it was held down at the Douglas Center and in that park. And it was also a lot more affordable for vendors to have booths or tables there because they did not charge a huge astronomical amount. Now that it's been moved to the city park, it's become less of a cultural celebration and more of a money-making opportunity because it is expensive to be able to get a booth or a table and whatnot there. So it would be nice if that could kind of get back to more of a cultural opportunity for people to show their talents and passions versus a money-making opportunity for the city. I'm just going to say that.
Thank you, Teresa, for that context, because that's really important for people for us to mark, right? The ways that those shifts of location are opportunities on one hand, but then can limit right? Limit participation and economic growth for who, right? And so sort of thinking about creating those communities for profitability. All right, did I see another hand up? Don't want to pass someone by.
Not sure if I saw a hand, but I do think there was a common reference, maybe somewhat similar, but maybe a little different when it in reference to the farmers market and allowing new cuisine vendors to occupy space there as well. So just acknowledging that. Sheila, I'm sorry, you.
Oh, yes, I was just agreeing with what everyone said. And we have several members. This is actually a big topic in our organization about food opportunities and being able to get commercial space. We have a member of our group that's received national attention actually for her cuisine and her food. She's actually featured on the Food Network, and she's had a lot of trouble trying to find and secure a commercial space in Manhattan with her restaurant. And it's something that, it's not just her, but it's other people in the group. And so even though the farmers market and other opportunities are there, just being able to have a restaurant or a space that's actually in a desirable area where there's a lot of foot traffic. When you look at the commercial space, the pricing, even if you look at the ownership of some of our more popular restaurants, you'll notice that they're owned by several restaurant groups that are, have the investment dollars to pour into that. And so it's definitely something to consider when it comes to the economic opportunity and looking at what people actually are desiring with the multicultural food, and then the people that can do it and are more than qualified to do it, and then the economic opportunity and the barriers to, and access to capital that's there.
Adrian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, when we were talking about incubators and for startup, I know the Asian market, Fanny Fang has talked about creating space for that exact purpose. So I just want to make mention that while we're mentioning some of these things, there are individuals within our community that are trying to actualize some of this as well. Tanya, you're muted.
Sheila, thank you for bringing that up initially. Adrian, thank you for telling me I was muted. But I think that I know we're focusing on strengths right now, but as we bring up some of our community strengths, I think it's really important to think about these opportunities to strengthen our community even further. And in these areas, I think it's crucial to recognize that. Adrian, did you have one more thing on economic opportunity, or are we just, okay, the hand's just up. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. All right. So we are going to move on from economic opportunity and the many opportunities we have in economic opportunities to the strength in individual and family support. Again, you will see some of these are repeated from other areas, but I thought that they just kind of work together across these categories. But I'll give you a moment to review what you all added initially, and then especially if you weren't able to join us a couple weeks ago and didn't have an opportunity to do the SWOT yet, if you want to add anything, please do. All right. Do we have anything to add to the area of
Individual and family support?
individual and family support? Sorry, just looking down at my notes. Okay. Right, well, this is our last area of strengths that we had, but then I also included the, so in case you were wondering, where's my point that I added? These are some of the general as a community strengths that I noticed, and so I just included in general as a community. These are some of the strengths that we might identify. And please do feel free to add.
Well, I just wanted to say that in the areas around town where I go, like the grocery store and other stores, people are really trying to mask up as they should over the mouth and nose. And I've noticed that people are very good at that.
Dr. Gonzalez, could someone elaborate on the admitting mistakes? Maybe there's something that predates my arrival, or maybe it's something that I'm just unfamiliar with in the time that I've been here. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. We don't know who sent what in, so I would have to rely on whomever submitted that particular bullet point to provide some reference. If you'd like to do so in the chat, then I'm happy to translate for the general audience. In the meantime, I'll let. In the meantime, Michael, may I ask? I believe you're representing MapJ. Is that correct?
Me, Flint Hills Human Rights Project, and so is Jerry Sexton.
Oh, both of you. Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, so I wanted. We didn't really put either one of we didn't list any of those institutions as strengths, and I thought that both of those were strengths, and that we might include both of those entities. In particular,
I'm a former chair of FHHRP, and Jerry is our current chair.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that that was listed as a mistake. I'm sorry, as a strength. I'm just reading. I'm just so it looks like the bullet point of admitting mistakes was perhaps referring to community conversations that or community connections and let's see who's this. Oh, okay. So it might have been to do with policing in the community and things like that. So that's probably the connection there. And then yeah, we have Boys and Girls Club that we need to add, and maybe some of the other entities in our community, right, that have been doing this work for a long time. I really do think that Manhattan, the Peace and Justice, right, MapJ has been doing a lot of this work for a long time and should be recognized for some of that as well. All right, let's see.
Yeah, I believe Dennis said he can elaborate on admitting mistakes.
Oh, Dennis, did you want to elaborate? You don't have to, but you're welcome to if you'd like.
Sure. No, I'll own anything I put on this list. What you wrote isn't exactly what I was referring to. What my point is by this being a strength is for people in the community, regardless of who we represent, to trust us and view us as legitimate. We also have to acknowledge when there are shortcomings or when we have fallen short, not because something was done intentionally, but it was something that could have been done better, and acknowledging that. And I won't get into examples, but there's been a couple of times in my short tenure here, Dr. Samuels, and you've been here longer than me actually, where I've made some public statements about things that turned out to be incorrect, and I had to go back and correct it later. And I think it's very important for our community and what we're doing here to be viewed as legitimate and as a strength to be willing to do that. And that was my point in making that comment.
It's an important point. I think we all, in fact, I was just talking to somebody about that today as a really important quality of leadership is to be able to do that kind of work.
Yeah, standing in
Teresa, yes, Teresa, Wonder Workshop, thank you for adding that. Such important, long-standing work in the community. I'm sorry, I'm having a moment of silence for our dear community member who ran Wonder Workshop for so long. And so just, okay, other strengths. Okay. Corey, are you there? Oh, sorry, Teresa.
Sorry. I would still say that the Douglas Center is still a good resource. They have lots of kids who don't have money to really participate in a lot of other extracurriculars who will go down there and use that to fill their time. And then, of course, they still have their program. Come See, Come Do was a program that my kids participated in the summer times, and it was wonderful for them. So
I have one I think we should add. And that's the Manhattan First Tee program. And they want to be recognized as the Manhattan First Tee program, I do believe. Thank you.
Also, the Russell Wright's Animal Shelter. A few weeks ago, adopted my second dog from there. My first dog from the Russell Wright's Animal Shelter passed away at the age of 17 in November. And in case you're wondering what I'm wrestling with, to my side, it's Emma, my adopted dog, just a few weeks ago.
Thanks, Michael, for sharing. I think I'll always remember your adoption of Emma because I think it was the day that this committee started to meet, if I recall. All right. So Corey, I think we've completed our sort of review of our strengths, and we've added some of the areas that we needed to add. We did want to ask you all to think about if there are ways that you immediately see that we could begin highlighting some of these strengths within our community, maybe things that are less visible that people don't necessarily utilize as much as they could. If there are ideas that you have to increase the visibility of some of these strengths, feel free to share that. This is something that's going to come up later when we have other conversations, but if you have ideas, Sheila, go ahead.
Yes, I am not sure if this is on here, but I thought I should mention, I think that the co-working spaces that are available with Spark and the Fellow and Ironclad downtown is a really great resource for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs to the area, and I don't think it's on the list, but I thought that we should add the co-working spaces that can really serve as incubators. And I believe there's one at K-State as well in the foundation building. So we have 3 co-working spaces around town, and it really helps to make it affordable for entrepreneurs, especially startups, to have space to meet and grow their offices and businesses out of. I know it's been helpful to myself.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Those are really crucial, and that should definitely go up in economic opportunity as well. Adrian.
Yes, and I just put in the chat. Yes, 1880 with the foundation. Exactly, Sheila. And then I was going to also mention, and this should probably go in perhaps another area there, but as a strength, I mean, and I know Dr. Samuel would probably say this as well, but with Lee Elementary, our schools that have a great deal of diversity, that offer, and Boys and Girls Club as a part of that after school program. And I just know that personally from my own kids and their experiences, and you too, Tanya, and so forth. So I just think that's a real strength that we have in our community. And for a lot of our international faculty and that are here, and they utilize Lee Elementary. I know Corey, you know it well as well. So I think we, so many of us right here on the screen, utilize our schools, our great schools. We probably can't stress that enough as a strength. I just wanted to mention that.
For sure.
Yeah, I like that, especially when you think of, one of the things when I was hired here and I learned about the college going or the college ready rate for the students who graduated from USD 383. A lot of times you gotta pay and go to a private school to get that kind of matriculation and readiness.
Very good. And there's just a couple of other, recommendations put down as well. So that I would add groups like Fairy Godmothers and the Catholic Charities have helped individual families meet needs. So those can also be included on this list.
I do want to say something along the lines of, USD 383. They have great programs. I agree with that. But I also feel that we can do better recruiting more teachers of color and more administrators. We need more leadership, again, to represent and for teacher parity. As I mentioned, the first time that we met, the importance of our students, of our youth, seeing teachers and administrators that look like them, and again, for different reasons. But I feel that we can do better when it comes to teacher and administrators, to representation of teachers and administrators.
I agree, Dr. Espinoza, and I also put in the chat, Dennis, for you mentioned making sure that our conversation was transparent. I feel like we need to do something about the mascot too. Me personally.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about the strengths right now, and we are talking about the strengths right now. Mr. Corey Williamson, let us confer, sir. It is 7:15 right now, and having just reorganized our weaknesses list, I know there is a long list. And so, my friends, in order to do justice to the work that you have put together, to this list of weaknesses that you've put together, but also to really kind of dwell a minute on the strengths, and then I think I'm going to send out, Dennis can send out the thematically adjusted SWOT, so that we can kind of look at both our strengths and our weaknesses side by side, theme by theme, and come back next month ready to really kind of unpack some the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we can kind of look at in those thematic kinds of ways, right? Corey, what do you think?
No, I think that's a perfect plan going forward. I do think it was important, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to allow us to just elaborate on the things that we value and appreciate about our community. I think this is a robust list, and as we continue to conversate and talk, we can tell we haven't hit every strength that we have in our community. So I think if we were to take the time between now and our next meeting, as we send out this updated version of our SWOT analysis, you can also continue to think about what other strengths should be added to this, but then also be thinking about as we move forward, how do we leverage these strengths to address some of the things that we're going to be working through, whether it be the weaknesses, the threats, or the opportunities. So that may be also something else to just kind of keep in mind as we proceed forward. So Tanya, I'm 100% agreement. And so I believe we can probably transition our discussion really to future meetings if you're okay with that. And I can kind of walk us through the upcoming schedule. Because I believe we've been able to get as far out as May now on our calendar. Go ahead, Tanya. I'm sorry, you have a thought?
No, I just wanted to, yes, I think we can go forward and talk about the scheduling. I do want to recognize Dr. Samuel gave a really good point that we can kind of think about, yes, having that a master doc. Sheila has another great point, so I'm sorry I'm being scattered. Sheila has an idea that we can make a master document that maybe we could share like on a OneDrive or on a Google Doc that we can kind of have as a one master document that we can look at electronically and make adjustments if we needed to. Is that what you had in mind, Sheila? Yeah, okay. And so what I can do is organize the, I can save this to a workable one document, and then I will adjust the rest of the opportunities and threats to the themes as well. And once we have that one document, we can review it prior to our next meeting and then have what Dr. Samuel is suggesting, which is some higher level kind of summary narrative around the themes that are kind of appearing, right? And then kind of have the discussion around those themes be a little bit more kind of comprehensive instead of doing only strengths, only weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we'll have those higher levels. But because we'll have the one document that has all of this together, we can go ahead and kind of read through that before our next meeting and add to it before the next meeting. Does that sound good to everyone? Perfect, wonderful. All right, I love those reaction buttons, those thumbs up. They make me so happy. Thank you, Dennis, for putting us back on the gallery view. Okay, so Corey, I will let you go through the schedule.
All right, another big thank you to Dennis. Thank you for keeping us on track and tracking the commentary that's taking place. So very well done. Appreciate your work and diligence there. All right, so moving forward, I believe at this point, or at least last time we met, we talked about the future meetings would be on Zoom until we were able to establish a safe environment for in-person meetings. So I anticipate, unless there's anyone that has any major concerns about this format, I would anticipate our next meeting would be Zoom, where we continue to work through the SWOT analysis, and then as we move forward, we can continue that conversation if we believe there will be value in an in-person setting, that we could still have an open meeting. So if everyone's okay, we'll plan on the Zoom meeting for our upcoming meeting. And I want to just make a quick note that the next meeting will be Thursday, March 25th. And please mark on your calendar that meeting will be at 6:30 and not 6 p.m. for the March meeting, just so we can coordinate with other meetings that are happening with other committees within the city. But then after that, we have two more meetings scheduled, which would be April 22nd and May 20th, both of which we're planning at this time to be at 6 p.m. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Before we adjourn, I want to make sure, are there any other thoughts or any other questions for the good of the group?
And Corey, I want to make sure we did send out those next 3 meetings to people's emails and calendars. So hopefully they're on there, but if not, I know some people get them through Gmail or whatever, but they are set on the times you identified. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, once again, thanks everyone. I think this was very good discussion, and I appreciate everyone's contributions and input. And so we look forward to the next time we're able to come together, March 25th at 6:30 p.m. Until then, you all take care and have a good week.